So it's nice to know that the Alabama Athletic Department and Nick Saban watch Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, because today it was announced that the Crimson Tide would play the Badgers of Wisconsin in an actual home and home series. I got that right. You got it right. Did you hear that? Alabama will be playing a true road game for the first time in 8 years. But, of course, this is going to be in 5 years from now, so it's going to be 14 years between Alabama playing true road games or any type of road game. But finally, at least we've got one on the books. Unless it gets canceled, it's going to be on the books with Alabama playing Wisconsin, a Big Ten SEC affair. And if you watch me on a regular basis, you know that I get pumped up when the two most lucrative, most popular, and most powerful conferences in college football get together. They typically do 2 to 4 times during the postseason, but regular season matchups are, of course, rare between the Big Ten and the SEC. But this will happen in Madison at Camp Randall Stadium, just the 4th time in the history of Wisconsin football that they will host an SEC team at Camp Randall Stadium, and those games are going way, way back, the most recent, LSU in 1971. So Bama goes to Madison in 2024, and then the Badgers take the return trip to Tuscaloosa in 2025. Both of those games played in early to mid-September. So Alabama's last 2 road games came in the year of 2010 and 2011. So they played Penn State back-to-back years in Happy Valley and in Tuscaloosa. The Tide won those games fairly easily, not huge blowouts, but they were much better than Penn State at that point and won 24-3 at home and 27-11 as well. So a combined, 51-14 games against Penn State near the end of the Joe Paterno run in Happy Valley. So that was the last time that Penn State traveled against anybody. They also had a 2010 game at Duke against the poor Blue Devils, winning that game 62-13. So between 2011 and right now, Alabama having played 4 non-conference games per season, and that's 7 seasons, so 7 times 4, 28 consecutive Alabama non-conference games played either at a neutral site or most of those games, at least 3 out of 4, so 21 out of 28 at home. So all home games and neutral site games against the likes of Wisconsin. You may remember that game in 2015, that being one of those big neutral site opening weekend games. And it was a decent game. It wasn't a great game, but it was a decent game. It was a 21-17 game into the 4th quarter, and then Alabama pulled away 35-17 against Wisconsin. They blew out Michigan in Jerry's World 41-14 in 2012. They, of course, had wins against Virginia Tech, Clemson. Those were neutral site games, as well as Louisville, of course, last season. They've got Duke coming up this season. Florida State, of course, in 2017 when they knocked out DeAndre Francois en route to a 24-7 win. And then the season USC won the Rose Bowl. Bama won that game 52-6, in which Jalen Hurts took over the starting quarterback role. And, of course, for USC, that ushered in the Sam Darnold era at USC in that blowout win 2016, 52-6. So Bama, I disparage Alabama's scheduling tactics, but they have destroyed most of these teams in neutral site affairs. The 2014 game was against West Virginia, a pretty decent game at 34-24, I believe. But they've won all these games, and most of those in blowout fashion against mostly top or higher tier programs. Again, Virginia Tech, Florida State, Wisconsin, Michigan, Louisville, and the like, Florida State and USC as well. So Alabama taking on Wisconsin. I love this series. Love to see it played in the actual atmosphere of college football. And Nick Saban addressed this a couple weeks ago at SEC Media Days in regards to Alabama wanting to play better opponents. So he's recently stated this, and they pulled through and they signed Wisconsin. 2024, 2025, it's a long ways off, but we always see these dates, and it seems like lost in space like future dimension, but it'll be here before you know it. Alabama, Wisconsin, I look forward to it. Your thoughts on the Tide and the Badgers. And really the question right here is, what matchups have we not seen? We get some good ones this year with Auburn, Oregon. Texas LSU's my favorite. Miami and Florida getting back together. Other ones include Michigan, Notre Dame. That's a typical matchup. Oklahoma, UCLA have played the last 2 years. Let's see off the top of my head. Of course, we get the typical Stanford and USC games against Notre Dame. Notre Dame taking on the ACC. Notre Dame going to Georgia to repay the visit from 2017. LSU and Wisconsin. Remember those two matchups that they played against the Badgers? Those were neutral site, but at least they played a game in the north, a game in the south, one in Houston, in which Melvin Gordon got hurt. 24-7 lead for Wisconsin. LSU came back and won 28-24, and then the return trip, Wisconsin pulled out the win, I believe 16-14 at home, or quasi-home game at Lambeau Field against LSU a couple seasons ago. So very interesting matchups across college football in Week 1 and Week 2. Would love to know what matchups you would like to see. Off the top of my head, how about Ohio State LSU would be a good one. Ohio State Georgia. Michigan playing a Georgia team would be interesting. Michigan and LSU have never played. Of course, we get Oklahoma taking on Nebraska, renewing that rivalry in a few years. I would like to see the best teams in the Pac-12, like Auburn and Oregon. Auburn and Washington play a little bit more often against the SEC. We've got a matchup with Georgia taking on UCLA, home and home, coming up in a few years as well. Clemson, who should they play? I cannot remember any Clemson-Michigan matchups throughout history. Would love to see that. Penn State against the SEC would be interesting as well. And we could go on and on right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, where we talk of the game we love better than anyone else. Best discussion, debate, and analysis right here. We'll be back as we continue with season previews, position previews, schedule rankings we've completed. Where do those teams rank? Check out and search the channel for those videos, and we will see you very soon right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.